Welcome back to the show. We got a really good one for you today. Ripple, the XRP escrow, and confiscation. Let's really drill down on this for a minute. Let's just roll this beautiful intro and get into it. And by the way, we've got comment from David Schwartz himself. Let's roll that beautiful intro.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradley above at the top of the screen and everything that we're talking about here today. Remember, follow me on Twitter. If you're not on there, make an account and follow me on there. I aggregate a lot of news and not all of it gets covered on the show. So make sure you follow me there. This is from Michael Val, 5 links this morning. ACI, a Ripple partner, and eBanks are partners. Brazilian fintech eBanks expanding payments across Central America. They are not stopping, whether it's Ripple themselves or a Ripple partner. Take a look at this. The G20 central banks will need to rescue paper money. Prediction CBDCs will be promoted as the future of money. Save the world from the pandemic. Smart money will pour into crypto assets. Thank you to Matthew Liney. You should follow him on Twitter. And take a look here before we get into the topic of today here. Some of the customers like iRemit leverage XRP to enable cross-border payments. XRP price seems primed for a 60% upswing as it bounces off the parallel channel's lower boundary. Here you can see that illustration right here. And basically, if we were to see a 60% breakout, I think that would put us somewhere in the 80-cent range or somewhere of that nature. So it says Ripple Southeast Asian customers actively leverage RippleNet Cloud, which facilitates domestic and international transactions. Some of the customers, like iRemit, leverage XRP to enable cross-border payments. XRP price seems primed for a 60% upswing as it bounces off the parallel channel's lower boundary. Well, I like hearing that. Anytime we're talking about price action going up, I definitely like hearing it. So, okay, and I think I must have this twice is what I do. Okay, so there is that. We'll keep an eye out for the 60% upswing. Here's where I want to drill down. Just the other day, and this is really what brought us together with Seal, XRP attorney, and Jeremy Hogan also. He has a theory here that he put forward. It's all about the Ripple's escrow. If Congress declares that regulating digital assets is a matter of national security, the federal government could invoke its eminent domain power to expropriate the private property for public use. We did touch on this a bit in our talk together, conversation we had Friday, and I will release a few more clips, I'm sure, and you can get on the newsletter, and I will release the whole entire interview, which is phenomenal conversation. I really like to call it a conversation because that's really when you have the best interviews, when they're just good conversation, and that's what that was. So understanding that here he's using the example. Now look, and let's be clear, none of us have the answer, and anyone who says they do is an egotistical maniac because they do not have the answer. I don't have it. You don't have it. What's interesting is none of us know the answer, but for some reason, these things are possibilities that we cannot take off the table. And this is very interesting. So just coming at it from the perspective that XRP attorney Seal has proposed here, let's roll with this. So that's his idea, is that, eminent domain power to expropriate the private property for public use. I have mentioned even that the U.S. Department of Treasury and FSOC have the ability through the Dodd-Frank Act under Section 113 to be able to deem financial stability and things systemically important to the financial stability of the U.S. and the globe if necessary. Here are a few things they have done that too. This is where it provides the definition of systemically important, which means it would be held to a heightened prudential of supervisory provisions of Title VIII. Now, coming down here is a list of things that we've seen be deemed systemically important, and oddly enough, or ironically enough, they're clearinghouses and the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, a depository trust company. Now, what's interesting about this is we understand that XRP is also set up to be able to settle stocks, bonds, and all the derivatives market. So back end. So that to me is really, really interesting because you know that XRP is designed to play a role in that matter. Now let's just go ahead and look at this right here again. So here is the original thread. I'm not going to run through the whole thread. You get it. He's basically saying government comes in and uses something like eminent domain. I've proposed the notion that government could come in and deem that it is a currency, albeit a convertible virtual currency or what have you, but the use of this asset to stimulate the world and the U.S. economy and to more than likely probably deal with the collapse of the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency could bring about a situation where they use XRP in the XRP ledger and deem it systemically important, and or something like RippleNet even, because we see in the past that we've covered here on the channel things like Microsoft Azure, Web Amazon Services, Google Cloud, and those things have been pursued by lawmakers to deem those things systemically important too, because those cloud type services have become very, very systemically important in the financial payment structure of the world today. But the important part to note about those things is they are non-bank institutions or entities. So whether it be a cloud service or what have you, they're non-banks, right? And that's the important part. And there's so much money running through these things that at some point something has to be done to protect the financial stability, knowing that they carry so much of the system through that. So with that being said, let's go to the next thing here. There was a comment on March 14th here from Jeremy Hogan that responded and said, confiscation of the escrowed XRP would certainly be within the executive powers. See Gold Reserves Act of 1933, etc. But in a twist of irony, the Fed would have to declare XRP a currency before confiscation. Exactly. And that's where I lean into the FSOC. However, it's interesting because David Schwartz responded and said, and asked a really great question. He says, it would be interesting to see what would happen in a case like that. There's really no way to predict it. It would be similar to what would happen if the NSA found Satoshi and forced him to give up his keys. Would the Bitcoin community respond by making his Bitcoin unspendable? XRP attorney Seal answers back and says, what's interesting is that the man who co-created the XRP ledger, and he believes, and also helped write the code for Bitcoin, didn't say that government expropriation was impossible. Now that is an interesting thing. He just asked what would happen. Here we have a clip from the hang that we had here, the conversation we had with Jeremy and XRP Seal, and listen to what Jeremy Hogan says here, and then we're going to talk about some comments after this here. Here we go.
Nicely, I mean, they make a good argument to hang your hat on, right, Jeremy?
Absolutely. Well, what Seal just said is, I'm not one to rain on a good speculation parade, so I'm going to go with you guys here. So here's my take on it. So if the U.S. government wants the escrowed XRP, it will have it.
And there you have it. It will have it. Crypt Tom asked a great question here, saying, do the validators sit idle as $45 billion from the escrow is confiscated by the U.S. government month on month? Not interrupting, in my mind, to build on his question. I don't see it interrupting the cryptographically auto-locked escrow account, but the release usually goes to the hands of Ripple. Imagine the government stepping in from either one way or the other, through FSOC or potentially through, if not FSOC, through eminent domain even. So the idea is to consider these things because we don't know how it'll end up going. However, when I look at this, I think he asked a great question. And in fact, I think it's very similar to the response that David Schwartz had here, right? When he's talking about it'd be interesting to see what would happen in that response and how the validators would respond to that. Well, Interestingly enough, my response was, great question, Crip Tom. We can't know the answer for sure. But my question to that is, will validators want to stop the U.S. knowing that the U.S. taking over the escrow would certainly signal mass adoption? I'd have to say no. Besides, I'm sure a lot of validators are already down with the end goal. That's my opinion. And the reality here is, Joel Katz did respond in a way of just not saying no, it couldn't happen. And shout out to you, XRP attorney CEO. He says he 100% agrees and thinks that thoughts are in line with how Joel Katz responded. Do you vote to burn the escrow or allow the government to be the steward to maybe manage it through the Fed or maybe even the Treasury? I'm building on that. Now the U.S. has a vested interest in XRP success. Yeah, and that's the thing I would have to ask myself. Would validators understanding that, say to themselves, hey, is this a bad thing or a good thing? Because it would signal to me that, well, obviously, if the U.S. government is going to, be handling the escrow after it's released, as Ripple has, then I would have to say to myself, well, does that mean in my mind they wouldn't use it, or we're about to see it get used in a large-scale manner that we've only dreamed and speculated about? And I think it would be the latter. So then I come here, and of course, Ripple has put out a new white paper explaining XRP as a bridge currency for CBDCs. And that is the end goal. The end goal is not just you and I holding it, because in fact, the retail investor, although we are important in the fact that we help to create a market to begin with, we all, generally speaking, are holding it, hoping that it goes up in value, which means that we don't bring the utility, we don't bring the volume that creates utility. But central banks do. And then if you understand that XRP is designed to be a bridge currency to all the money, then you go back to 2017 and remember this little fun fact. Ripple pre-allocated $300 million worth of XRP at the time for RippleNet's accelerator program. And you didn't get any, and I didn't get any. And you know why? Because you don't bring the volume for utility of XRP, just like I don't. They gave, through this, just as they said in the SEC complaint on line 82, Ripple also undertook to achieve its goal of widespread distribution of XRP by exchanging XRP for non-cash consideration such as labor and market-making services. In other words, we will pre-contractually give you a certain amount of XRP based to scale on your volume that you can bring to our payment network, which is the XRP ledger. Yeah, don't believe it. It's still true. And guess what? How crazy is all of this? How crazy is all of this? The IMF calls for a new Bretton Woods moment. Uh-oh. So you mean this whole pounding of the ground, what was the Bretton Woods to begin with? Well, if you don't know, the Bretton Woods is where we got the U.S. dollar designated as the global reserve currency for the world. It was also the birth of the IMF. If we're calling for a new Bretton Woods moment, it means we're calling for a new global reserve currency of sorts, maybe even a bridge currency, and possibly a new IMF. If we get a new IMF, what will it be? Ripple? RippleNet? Some other consortium that looks like a G7, G20 panel? If we're calling for a new Bretton Woods moment, and we're not talking about crypto fanatics and YouTube influencers, but we're talking about the IMF, then what will replace the US dollar? A bridge currency like XRP? See, the interesting thing here is that this isn't just a bunch of YouTubers and Twitter influencers just saying these things. These things are being carried, and the narrative is being carried by some of the biggest world leaders on the planet. And I think that is the most important thing to note. One other thing, anyone who tells you something can't happen is telling you that they don't know what is happening, because everything is on the table until it's not. Hit the like and subscribe, leave a comment below, make sure you share with somebody you know. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Imagine for a second being in the late 1920s. Think of this for a moment before we go. Imagine being in the 1920s, late 1920s, in the early 30s, during the Depression, telling everyone at that time, you knew that the U.S. dollar was going to be the new global reserve currency, and the U.S. economy was going to bounce back from this depression that we're in. What would people think of you in that optimism? Think of it. What would people think of you for being that optimistic while everyone's eating turnips because you can't even get potatoes? That's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Make sure you share with somebody you know. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Check out all the links in the description box and the comment section. They are great products and services I use each and every day, and they are vetted, trusted links. I Trust Capital, Crypto, Gold, Silver IRA is the best going IRAs on the planet, bar none. Make sure you check them out. Catch you on the next one.